Gazans thought this kind of trauma was over, but no. As the airstrikes continued overnight, casualties mounted, among them children. One missile hit a camp next to Aqsa Hospital in the center of Gaza, where patients and their families were sleeping. God help us, said Amna Kranawi. What kind of a truce is this? It's a fragile one, with both sides accusing the other of violations.
Maybe it's the fact that I've been doing this job for nearly 2 decades, and I'm just kind of fed up with just the endless euphemisms, the lies, the lack of straight talk. So let me just give you straight talk right now. There is no ceasefire in Gaza. When over 100 people get slaughtered in a single night, that's not a ceasefire. So with that in mind, last night, at least 104 Palestinians were slaughtered by the Israelis in airstrikes across Gaza. 46 of them happen to be children. But if the Israelis aren't slaughtering children, what else would they be doing? It was the deadliest attack since the so-called ceasefire came into effect on October 10th. They burned children while they were asleep. Haneen Meter, whose sister and nephews were killed in a strike, shouted in the morgue at Nasser Hospital in the southern city of Khan Yunis. This just happened last night. And the response that you will inevitably get from Israel's defenders is, what about October 7th, 2023? Because those lives mattered. The lives of Palestinian children, innocent civilians in Gaza, they don't matter at all. Please don't talk about them. What about October 7th? In the Barij refugee camp, 5 members of a single family were reportedly killed in a strike on their home. How do you justify that? Striking homes? Okay. Reporter Mohammed al-Munirawi was among those killed, bringing the total number of journalists slaughtered by the Israelis to 256. These are the facts on the ground. And I just want to interject real quick to say, anyone who is under the impression that being angry with Israel over what's transpiring in Gaza, in the West Bank, and Lebanon, where there's also allegedly a ceasefire. Anyone who thinks like, anyone calling this out, they're just anti-Semitic, they just hate the Jews. There are Jews who don't co-sign onto this. No problem with them. There are evangelicals and Jews who do co-sign onto this. Now, do I hate them simply because of their identity or their religious beliefs? No, I hate them because of this ideology that makes them believe that they're actually the good guys as they're slaughtering tens of thousands of children in the quest to steal more land. I'm just calling it like I see it. It has nothing to do with Jewish religion. It has nothing to do with Jewish identity. It has everything to do with the ongoing injustices and slaughter that everyone on the international stage has been witnessing for the last 2 years. And it's endless. It is absolutely endless. The entitlement of the Israelis, the absolute disregard for human life, the perpetual victimhood as they're the ones who are doing the slaughter and stealing the land. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. And more importantly, the use of the word anti-Semite or anti-Semitism, just basically taking it and destroying what that word means entirely. That word means nothing anymore. Because anyone and everyone has been called an anti-Semite at this point when they've seen the slaughter of those kids and have expressed utter disgust with the fact that it continues to happen. They're anti-Semites apparently, okay. Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the Israeli military to carry out these powerful strikes, as he referred to them, after an IDF soldier, 37-year-old Master Sergeant Yonah Ephraim Feldbaum, was killed in Rafah. So since an IDF soldier was killed, and by the way, it is unclear exactly what happened and how this individual was killed. But because one IDF soldier was killed, that means over 100 Palestinians need to be slaughtered, including 46 children. A military source said the attack took place in the southern city of Rafah on the Israeli side of the so-called Yellow Line, which demarcates IDF-controlled territory inside Gaza under the ceasefire deal. There is no ceasefire deal. There is slaughter and land theft happening right now in Gaza as we speak. Okay, for Mr. wannabe Nobel Peace Prize winner Donald Trump, he can go ahead and try to lie to the American people and everyone else on the international stage all he wants. He has not brokered a peace deal, and this isn't a ceasefire. Ceasefire means that you stop the slaughter. And that's not what the IDF has any interest in doing. That's not what the Israelis have any interest in doing. Sergeant Feldbaum was killed when one of the vehicles of an IDF engineering team that was dismantling an underground tunnel route in Rafah was hit by fire from terrorists in the area, according to the source. But Hamas says that they were not involved in the shooting and that it may have been carried out by a rogue Palestinian militant. It could have been carried out by one of the gangs that Israel admitted to funding in the Gaza Strip. And look, here's what I know for sure. There's only one thing when it comes to the death of this IDF soldier that I know without a shadow of a doubt. I don't trust the Israelis at all, at all. So until I see some actual confirmation of what happened, an independent body investigating this to clarify exactly what happened, I'm not gonna buy their narrative at all because they're known liars. That's what they do. They lie, they kill, and they steal. That is what the IDF is known for now. And that's not according to me. That's according to anyone who's been paying attention to this story. I'm just telling the truth. So they reiterated, meaning Hamas, they reiterated that they were committed to this make-believe imaginary ceasefire. There is no ceasefire, okay? The slaughter continues. And the slaughter is very much carried out by one side, where hundreds of people get killed in a single night, and then they somehow make themselves out to be the victims. It is the most, it is awe-inspiring, it really is. It really is, the lack of self-awareness, the lack of personal responsibility, the inability to see how the Israelis look like absolute monsters on the international stage right now. And we as Americans also look like monsters. Because we're the ones funding that welfare state. We're the ones funding the bombs that are being dropped on the heads of all those children, all those elderly people, all those innocent civilians. And the thing that sucks is that we have absolutely no power to stop it. Oh, this wonderful democracy that we live in where you have two sides of the political aisle firmly up the ass of the Israeli government. Well, what a democracy. Where literally you can't vote for someone who's gonna put a stop to this. Because our politicians are either blackmailed, bribed, compromised, you get the point. There's a second reason the Israelis gave for launching the strikes. I don't really care what reasons they have. I don't take anything that comes out of the Israelis seriously at all. But to do my due diligence, why don't we hear about how it has to do with the bodies of the deceased hostages? Let's take a look.
Yeah, so overnight, Hamas transferred the remains of a body that Israel says it already partially recovered earlier in the war. And Israel calls that a major violation because they're still waiting for the bodies of 13 deceased hostages that are still in Gaza. But Israeli officials tonight are also pointing to this video that they're posting online today, which appears to show Hamas fighters removing a body in the very left corner of the screen right there, removing a body of a deceased hostage from a house so that they could bury it. You see that right there. They then a few minutes later move that body with a bulldozer, and then watch this, they pretend that they had just discovered it to hand it over to the Red Cross and then Israel. Israeli officials have been livid about this, with one telling me, quote, they're making a joke out of the Red Cross and us, and it's proof Hamas knows where all the deceased hostages are, and therefore proof Hamas is slow rolling their return. But again, a US official tells me Hamas actually only knows where half the bodies are. There are many deceased hostage bodies buried under the rubble in Gaza, and that while Hamas must make a good faith effort to make haste and return those bodies, Israel must exhibit, quote, patience.
Well, I mean, obviously, the only just response to that is to kill 46 children, which is what the IDF did. Hamas, on the other hand, says that it was Israel that violated the ceasefire agreement. And to be sure, they have violated the ceasefire agreement in a multitude of ways. Okay, so one of the ways is they were supposed to allow 600 humanitarian aid trucks into the Strip. They have not been doing that. Wow, I'm so shocked and chagrined. That was the most predictable thing on the planet. And as we know, the killings slowed down a little bit, but they didn't stop. Nonetheless, after the deadly strikes on Gaza, Donald Trump defended Israel's decision to slaughter all those kids and all those innocent civilians, because why not? Let's take a look.
They say it was sniper fire, and it was retribution for that, and I think they have a right to do that.
Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Congresswoman, has a different take. Luckily, there are some of us who aren't unhinged lunatics who salivate at the slaughter of innocent people. She writes, Israel's military said Wednesday that the ceasefire was back on in Gaza after it killed 104 people, including 46 children, according to local health officials. 46 children. Are these not war crimes? They're war crimes when anyone else does it, but when it's the Israelis, the precious, precious Israelis, well, they're above international law. They're above needing to act like normal human beings that actually believe in humanity. They can do whatever they want. They can kill American citizens and get away with it, as they have. And after the strike that killed over 100 Gazans, Israel declared that the ceasefire is still in effect. Still in effect. Because ceasefire to the Israelis means you cease, we fire. And that's what they've been doing. Except here's this, after it was announced the restoration, what a joke, restoration of the ceasefire. The Israeli military said it carried out another airstrike in northern Gaza, targeting what it called a site where weapons were being stored for an imminent attack. Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City said it received 2 bodies from the strike. Is anyone really still in denial about what's really going on here? What would it need to be? How many people in Gaza would need to be slaughtered by the Israelis for the genocide deniers to finally accept what the reality is? That's what I'm curious about. 46 kids in a single night slaughtered by Israel's military. And you'll still have pathetic, embarrassing goons like Emily Austin running around talking about how wonderful, how democratic, how lovely Israel really is. The checks must clear real easy. But anyway, despite Trump immediately running to Bibi's defense after the initial strikes, other officials within the government, meaning the US government, made a pretty stark admission to PBS reporter Nick Shirfin. So I'm sure PBS will be privatized and purchased by one of the Ellisons soon. But before that happens, luckily we get sound bites like this.
A US official warns to me tonight they are still worried that Israel is trying to look for an excuse to, quote, level the place, as in level Gaza, restart the war. So the US is trying to prevent that, make sure the ceasefire holds.
Come on. Israel's gonna do whatever it wants. There is no ceasefire. They're still killing people. They're still stealing land. They have no intention of leaving the portion of the Gaza Strip, somewhere around 53% that they're currently occupying. There's no question about that. They want to take that land. Trump talking about how like, oh, we're not gonna let the Israelis annex the West Bank. They're annexing it right now as we speak. We're not stupid. We can think for ourselves. We can see what's happening. We ignore mainstream corporate US media, which is totally controlled by the Zionist agenda. You pay attention to actual news and what's happening on the ground there in Gaza and the West Bank and Lebanon and the Middle East in general. And you see the picture pretty clearly. There's no amount of lying from the Trump administration that's going to cover up the crimes that are currently being committed and have been committed by the Israelis over the last 2 years.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.